Hi, welcome back to Gathering Grounds Gaming, and in this video, it's the Kill Team Board Grand Finale. I'll catch you after this. So welcome back, and welcome to the last installment for this Kill Team Boards tutorial. I'm so looking forward to showing you this today. So we're going to be covering loads again today. So I'm going to be showing you how, first of all, prime, paint, and dry brush all of the 3D printed buildings. I'm going to show you how I prime the whole board and create some differentiation between the different stoneworks, and then all the real fun stuff happens. So I'm going to show you how to do all of the base readies. So I've got loads of different textures to add to the board today. I'm going to show you how to do the resin pour for the crater and the puddles, some really good effects, and just actually also adding some color throughout the board, just in small little bits here. I've got some barrels to paint over here. We've got some different flocks to sort of drop down and some little grass turfs. And I'm going to do it all the way through to the final reveal at the end. As I say, if you like any techniques you want to take note, please let me know what you like in the comments. And I just hope you enjoy the video, and I just hope you enjoy the great reveal at the end. And I've really enjoyed doing it. I'll talk you through a couple of my high points for the board build at the end. But for now, enjoy the video, and I'll catch you after.
So the first thing I'm going to do is just dry brush up the building. So I've done these to a mid grey and then through to a light grey, and they'll be ready for the table to put some washes on. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to get some black acrylic mixed with PVA, and I'm just going to PVA all of the blue foam ready for the top coat of paint. It's important to do this because I'm actually going to come in with some spray paint. So to do this first means it's all sealed, ready to go. And as I say, I'm just picking up all of the pavements. I'm not going to do the cork in the middle because I will come in and spray paint that in black and then in grey afterwards. So you can see here I've done all of the main coat here. And then I'm spray painting the cork. And I'll finish off the whole board now with that, anything that's been textured. So you can see it's all been done here. And what I'll do is I'll pick out all of the stonework on the buildings in a separate colour. And I'm just capturing the crater in a brown. I actually ended up darkening this off. And now I'll just dry brush all of the textures just to give it a little bit of variation, and I will create a bit more variation between the pavement and the roads later, but this is just picking up with I do a mid grey and then a light grey afterwards. And literally just going to go around the whole piece. And it's important to do this because when you put the ink wash on later, then you then get some highlights sort of straight away. Takes a while, but it's well worth doing, and these barrels I make them actually quite light so I can paint them afterwards. And I'll do the same but with some brown around these craters, and I'll probably actually get a bit more brown across the piece as well, just to make a bit more dirt, because everything's very black and grey, and it's just nice to create a bit of differentiation between the black and the browns to give it a bit more interest, a bit more colour. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in and get all of the little bits of blue foam that I've missed. So all the little hidden bits. It's important to go around with some grey and just fill them in so they don't show at the end, because they will be the bits that pop out when you finish the whole piece. All you'll see is these little blue bits. So it's important to go around and spend the time filling all those in. And I'll do the same on the pavement as well. And as you can see, I actually went in and darkened off the crater from that light brown that I sprayed to a very dark brown. I actually think it looked better to do it that way rather than just have it very light. The contrast was a bit too much. and I'm just putting a little bit more brown in the first one as well, and you can see there's a big difference in terms of the brown there as well. And this is literally, I think this is like a fangorn brown, so it's not too dark. Now, just literally walking through how I create the differentiation between the pavement and the road. As I say, the road is only done to like a mid-grey, and I did the pavement all the way through to like I add a bit of white to my lightest grey, and it just, as you can see here, it just creates a nice bit of variation between the two places on the board. And when I then put some ink over the top, it will sort of like mute the white a little bit and make it a bit more murky, so it will sort of make it look a lot more ruined rather than it's not so bright. I think it's important as well just to make sure that the whole look of the piece isn't too one colour. So I'm just walking through that now, and as you can see, like on the side of the buildings, I make sure that I've sort of really sort of dry brushed them all out as well, so they sort of because of the height of them, they sort of stand out amongst the rest of the board. Otherwise it can just look a little bit bland, a little bit boring, so it's really important that you get these steps. I'm just going to go back in now and just make sure that with the boards next to each other, to make sure it's all blended.
So now we're going to go around
and that
picking
you
out
can see all of the different shades.
the
Now I'm going to go in
all
and
of the
actually do
metal.
some of these metal work, see these pipes
So like
and
the
some of the
rebar here.
rebar. I'm just going to go in and paint all that silver.
Might pick out some of the plates,
And I'm going to add a little
all the
bit of rust
rebar,
in as well,
like,
just again, so a little bit more
ruins.
texture, a little bit of
And I might even
differentiation in
pick out
terms
where
of
some
colour.
of this needs to be
And there's some
metal
like
as well.
metal
Just
work
again
around
to
the
give it a
windows,
bit more
which I think
flavour.
I'm going to pick out as well. Now at this point I decided to sort of add some blues in for the barrels. I added some barrels into the middle of the board, and I'm going to do some blue for the barrels, but then I'm also going to pick out some of the metal work on the big buildings in red. I think it's going to make it all look, again, little bits of colour just sort of pop, not lots. So I start off with some Mephiston red and for the barrels, but also Mephiston red for the metal work on one of the buildings. So it's almost like an air conditioning unit. I'm just going to pick that out, and then I'm going to mute it down with some wash afterwards. And all the little details like the vents. Then I'm going to add some typhus corrosion, so this is like creates like a rust look, and I'm going to do that on this sort of motor work here. I'm also going to do it on some of the metal rebar and different, just dotted around the piece where rust might form. Not going to go over the top, but just going to create a little bit, again, to create a little bit of variation. And then I come in and dry brush with some Necron compound. It's like a solid paint which you dry brush in just to pick out some of the highlight for the metal. And as you can see, like that red looks quite good. Same with the barrels and the blue. And I've also added in the little crest on the flag with a contrast paint, which I'll sort of dull down a little bit later. At this point is where I decide that I'm going to do some resin, I think, in these craters. And I think I'm also going to add some resin, clear resin onto the road to make it look like it's been raining or there's been a leak. Just again, to create a bit more interest. And now I'm going to go over the whole board with it's an ink wash, so it's a brown and black ink, and this is going to really sort of get into all the crevices and that, and it's going to really sort of brown off the board as a whole to make it look very dirty. And then I'll come in afterwards and I'll bring some of those highlights back up. But if you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know that this does really look very brown when you put it on, but when it dries, it does actually dry a lot lighter, so don't worry too much. go. And now I'm just bringing some of those dry brushes back with a light grey, just to sort of highlight some of the, to keep the brown, it keeps that sort of tone of brown in the actual stonework and that, but it just brings those highlights back to the front, makes them pop out again, which is super important. If you don't do this step, it all just ends up very dull, so it's important that you do those steps. And there it is. So it's all been dry brushed back up. As you can see, it's quite dirty looking, but that's a good thing. And this will just dry a bit more now, and make sure it all dries before we go on to the next step, which is going to be the base readies. But it's looking really good. I'm really liking that red. It just brings that little bit of colour to the board. If only in a couple of little places, it still makes it stand out a bit. As you can see as well, the barrels look really good. So now we're going to move on to base readies. So I've got a mixture of different ones. I'm going to do the main one is going to be Arid Earth. So it's a Geek Gaming product, and this is just very fine light stones, and I'm going to use this very much on the pavements and on the road, and I'm going to mix it in a little bit with the actual ruined buildings, and then on top of that I'm going to add some chipped slate. So this is going to create like almost like broken up stones from like where the buildings have collapsed, and I'm going to put that in underneath all the buildings. And then you've got City Rubble, which is another Geek Gaming product. Again, this is very light, so it sort of does a nice contrast for ruined buildings against the pavement. And this is going to create a nice look, and I'm going to mix it in with a bit of Arid Earth, and that's going to look really, really good, especially when you add the slate on top. And then this is the final one is a Jarvis product. So this is Battle Zone Scatter, and this is really good because it's got lots of great colour, and it's got some static grass in it. So again, it's just going to add a little bit of colour, a little bit of tone, and just a bit of interest to the board at the end. So I think it's super important that you do that, because you're going to have little bits of foliage that's going to grow, and I think it's where the board sort of sat for a long time and sort of grass has grown up, gives it a nice bit of interest. So I will probably start with this ruined building over here. So I'm going to do it individually, and it's important to cover the whole board in PVA before you start, just to make sure everything holds on really nicely. And it's a really good opportunity as well to fill any gaps that you've seen. Drop the stones in, drop all the base readies in there, and that will fill all them little gaps. And I come in with a slate again, just mix it in with the Arid Earth. Don't have to go crazy, but as I say, it creates a nice bit of difference. And then I'm going to do something similar on the pavement. So I'm just going to run PVA down the edges again, filling in all the gaps between where the cork and the foam meet. But you literally just cover it in PVA, and then just again scatter it all over, getting a nice blend. And it's important at the end is to put the boards next to each other to make sure that there isn't like a differentiation in the colour, or if you've added too much Arid Earth on one board and not the other, make sure that they both match so they blend really nicely. Otherwise the board looks a bit weird when you're finished. Just going to get it in around the rubble as well, say just where it's all sort of stones have all fallen, and just get that mix of all three colours. Just finished off with the Battle Zone Scatter. And there it is. So again, it looks quite bright at the minute, but when it's all sort of all PVA sprayed over it, that will all sort of dull the colour down, but this creates a nice little blend. And I'm now just blending the boards together. This is the second piece. It's just making sure that the colours match from board to board, like I said, and just doing the same process again. So this is what it looks like now before I add any of the matte varnish. It's just going to create some nice texture, some nice blend. Just make sure you haven't missed anything. And now it's to seal it all in. So this bottle here is PVA and water. And what I'm going to do is it's 1 for 1. I normally put a little bit more water in than I do PVA. And then I'm going to add in polyurethane varnish. So make sure it's a matte varnish because you don't want this to shine. You just want it to be a matte finish. And you just pour this into the PVA. And what that does is that all blends together and the PVA sticks all down, but the matte varnish creates a really solid seal over the top. And you use in this bottle here is sort of isopropanol alcohol. You spray this on first, and what this does is it breaks the surface tension so all of the matte varnish can sink down to the bottom and seal all of it in place, so you don't get any bits falling off. It's solid as a rock, and I'll make sure that all of it is completely saturated and completely covered. So first of all, we'll do it in one small area. So you get the isopropanol, you spray it over, and then you come in with matte varnish afterwards. And there you go. So it's quite strong, so just do it from a distance and literally completely saturate it so it's completely soaked. And you might want to do this a couple of times if you feel that it needs it. Just make sure that when you are doing it, don't spray the isopropanol too much against the buildings, because the isopropanol will reactivate any ink washes if you haven't varnished them first, which is what I don't tend to do because I quite like it when the ink does run a bit. So these are both the boards. It's completely saturated, but this just now will just need to dry. But as you can see, it's completely covered. And it's also already looking really good. You can see the colours have started to mix really nicely. The sprays have actually mixed some of the aggregates together. This is it. So now it's all dry. You can see it's all locked in place. And it's looking really good. You can see where all the stones have sort of gathered. And sort of, you can see the where the steps sort of blend in, and all the different sort of rubbles, and where all the aggregates have settled in amongst the rubble. It looks really realistic. I really like this effect. And it's say here the steps you can see now that I've created in the rubble. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do the resin pour. So I'm going to pour just a bit of resin into this central crater, and I'm going to create a little puddle just here, sort of coming down the street, and just another one sort of in amongst the steps just at this end as well. So what it does is it creates a looks like a pipe's burst or something, and the water's running down the road. Just create some nice puddles. So for this I'm going to use just some basic epoxy resin. So this is by Art Studio. It's cheap as chips. It's $9.99 for 2 bottles that you mix together. And all I'm going to do is mix it up and pour it in here, add a bit of ink to it to create a murky colour, pour it in the crater, and then add the puddles in afterwards. So it's super simple. So I'm going to add some Agrava Earthshade to just give it the murky colour. Now you get it in the cup, you do 1 for 1, so it's whatever measurement of one you do the other, and just give it a good stir. So stir for a couple of minutes just so it gets nice and sort of thick, and then added the inks in. So I've got some green and I've got some Agrava Earthshade here. Just mix them together. I don't want it too murky, but just enough that it creates like a bit of a brown tinge when you look into it, but it's still going to be see-through, so I can still see to the bottom, because it's just going to be some puddles. then we'll do a tall pour. So I'm going to start with a crater, just a nice tall pour, just to get the air bubbles out. And we're just going to just drop another little bit of just over here, just to create a puddle. Then we're just going to move it about, just using a stick, just to get all of it out of the cup, and then we can just manipulate it. It's self-leveling, but just sort of move it around a bit, just to make sure it doesn't look too unrealistic. Just let it run. Just do that. And there you go. So we got the puddle, we got the crater there, we got the puddle here. And so it runs around the middle, and then there's another light. It's almost like a little stream that's running down through the middle, with a little puddle just there as well. So it's just nice bit of interest. I really like how this has turned out. It's worked really, really well for something I wasn't even going to do. And I'm really pleased how it's all turned out. So it's all dry now. It's got some miniatures on there just to show you a bit of scale. But I'm really pleased how the steps have turned out. So, you know, all the rubble I've laid here to help the miniatures move up. And, you know, the resin puddles have turned out really, really well. Really, really well. And as I say, they fit in with the scale of the 28mm miniatures as well. And I'm really chuffed I put the resin in here. So you can see, like, it's got a Necron moving around.
I really hope you enjoyed this series. I'd say I've loved every moment of it. The bits I really loved the most, I really enjoyed doing the trying out the technique to do the craters with the foil and the sculptor mold. That was something I'd never done before, and I really loved it. And I actually really enjoyed the resin. I've never really done resin in just sort of small amounts and sort of creating puddles, and that's something I'm definitely going to be using again. So for me, they were like some really high points, and it was great to show you how to sculpt some buildings from scratch. That's something I sort of normally only do in sort of like in small sort of scale, and being able to combine the 3D printed pieces with the sculpted pieces for me was a really, really good point. So I'd say small boards is never not something I've really done before. So let me know your thoughts. And do you think I should do another couple of boards to create like a skirmish board? That's something I've got in my mind now. I sort of got the taste for doing the sort of like the smaller connected modular boards. But as I say, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've enjoyed the steps. I hope you've enjoyed all the tips and tricks. And I look forward to seeing you for the next project, the next board build maybe. But until then, I look forward to seeing you.